Each year, U.S. consumers receive billions of unwanted robocalls, which has eroded their trust in voice calling and resulted in countless calls from unknown numbers gone unanswered. As a result, banks that use voice calling as their primary communications channel are struggling to connect with customers. This can negatively impact their ability to generate new business opportunities and create more meaningful relationships. In order to strengthen customer engagement, increase answer rates, and ultimately boost profitability, banks must leverage solutions that restore trust in voice calling. Welcome to our podcast, hosted by American Banker and sponsored by Transaction Network Services. I'm Antoinette Alexander, guest host, and today I'm speaking with Jim Terrell, Vice President of Enterprise Product Management for TNS, and Shelley Dunnigan, Senior Director of Enterprise Branded Calling for TNS. Jim and Shelley are here to discuss how spoof protection and branded calling solutions can help banks better protect their brand and consumers, modernize voice, drive greater conversion rates and call durations, and strengthen customer engagement. Jim and Shelley, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Antoinette.
Thanks so much for having us.
Glad you could be here today. As mentioned, given the lack of trust in voice calling, it can be difficult for banks to connect with customers. Their inability to alert customers to changes and offer new services can impact customer relationships and ultimately hurt their bottom line. Can you tell us more about these challenges that banks are currently facing?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure we've all experienced it. You've received an incoming call from an unknown number on your phone. You don't know who it is. You choose not to answer it, and hopefully they leave a voicemail. As you noted earlier, each year Americans receive billions of unwanted calls. Some of the calls are legitimate, but too often it's a bad actor looking to trick individuals into providing sensitive account and personal information for financial gain. As a result, many incoming calls from unknown numbers go unanswered. In fact, research has shown that nearly 70% of U.S. adults never answer a phone call from an unknown number. Research has also shown that 73% say they are concerned about robocall scams that claim to be from a financial services provider.
Yes, the problem is that this can present a number of challenges for today's banks looking to improve communication with customers and deliver important information like account notifications, status updates for an application, or to verify confidential personal information. Not to mention inform them of new products and services as they become available. This also holds true for potential customers. A bank's inability to connect with prospects hinders their ability to drive new business and drive greater profitability. In light of today's environment, being able to help both current and potential customers weather the economic uncertainty is especially critical.
Absolutely. Studies have shown that customers are much more likely to answer the phone when banks can display branded information on the incoming call screen. So for those not too familiar with the technology, tell us more about branded calling. What is it?
Sure. The bottom line is we need to restore trust in voice calling. This begins by having the right spoof protection and branded calling solution in place. Branded calling is essentially when brand information, such as the bank's name and logo, is displayed on the incoming call screen. When customers see a brand logo and company name appear on their incoming call screen, this significantly increases their trust in the call. They are then more likely to answer the phone. Jim, I think you have some statistics specifically on this point.
That's right, Shelley. Research has shown that 77% of U.S. adults would answer a call from their bank if the brand logo and name were displayed on their incoming call screen. That's pretty significant. What's also interesting is that over half of U.S. adults surveyed said they would prefer to engage with their financial services provider via a phone call rather than other methods like email or text messages. So instilling customers' trust in voice calling enables banks to engage with customers in a way in which they want to be engaged. This is also an important fact to consider.
Yeah, it definitely is. And further building on the need to restore trust in voice calling, TNS offers Enterprise Authentication and Spoof Protection. Tell us about this and why it's so important.
Yeah, let's take a closer look at the Enterprise Authentication solution. When Enterprise Authentication is deployed, banks can have greater certainty that that only their verified calls are branded. It does this by leveraging TNS's out-of-band call event API to ensure that only legitimate, verified calls are delivered with branding to the end recipient. Calls that are unverified are marked as potential spam to warn customers.
In other words, banks can be confident that only verified calls are allowed to reach their customers.
Right. And then there's also TNS Spoof Protection. For those not too familiar with spoofing, this is a type of scam where a bad actor spoofs or uses the phone number of a legitimate organization to convince a victim that they are trying to interact with a known and trusted source. Too often, though, businesses are unaware that they've been spoofed until it's too late. Their reputation's been harmed, penalties are levied, and their customers are defrauded. TNS Spoof Protection helps solve the problem. When paired with enterprise authentication that I spoke about earlier, this technology lets banks specify that unregistered calls from their numbers be immediately blocked in the network. This means that banks can be rest assured that spoof calls will never even reach their customers, protecting their brand and consumers. To explain how this works, banks can pre-register their calls with the TNS Enterprise Authentication solution by sending a deposit via the call event API. Once this is done, only calls that can be verified by TNS Enterprise Authentication are allowed to go through to consumers. All others are recognized as spoofing, and appropriate call treatment, such as blocking, can be applied.
It also provides valuable in-depth reporting features so banks can track spoofing activities in real time. So as it's happening, we're allowed the banks to have these reporting features, and you're going to be able to see any type of spoofing activities in real time. So by combining all of these offerings, banks can help enhance the customer experience by eliminating spoofing activities by illegitimate callers, help fight against the bad actors that are out there by adding a signifying layer of protection for customers, improve conversion rates by increasing customer confidence in voice calling, reduce operational costs and penalties incurred from dealing with customer fraud. And some of those penalties have been quite hefty that have been levied. So that will eliminate that. Leverage robust reporting capabilities, including real-time dashboard reports on spoofing activities, and better protect their brand reputation and restore consumer trust in voice calling.
Yeah, that's definitely significant. Better answer rates and improved customer conversion rates are just a few of the benefits to be gained with branded calling. Tell us more about the ROI that banks can experience with branded calling solutions.
Yeah, sure. So voice calls are a critical communication channel for banks looking to connect with their clients. We talked about that earlier. And voice calls can prove to be the most successful for building customer relationships and driving meaningful engagement. The ROI that banks can experience with branded calling solutions is pretty significant.
Yes, if I may, Jim, to help illustrate the benefits to be gained, I'd like to share a real life example. We recently had a corporate advisory firm come to us to better understand how branded calls might improve their clients' lead generation process. This firm works with clients to help them weather the shifts in financial markets. The firm participated in a study we conducted to learn more about real-world impact branded calls would have on answer rates. The results were overwhelming. For this study, we simply split the wireless phone subscribers into two groups, test group and a control group. Calls to the test group were branded, calls to the control group were not. Calls made to both groups originated from a tier 1 US wireless carrier. As I mentioned, the results were absolutely overwhelming. The customer answer rate for the calls to the test group, which were the branded calls, increased by an astounding 133%.
Exactly, Shelley. When call agents are able to connect with current and prospective customers, they will experience improved conversion rates and better call durations. Plus, they can gain a competitive advantage over those companies that do not provide branding information on the incoming call screen. When a consumer chooses to answer the call, they've already decided to engage with the company. Therefore, an improved and more meaningful interaction can be expected. Research has shown that if the incoming call is branded with a financial services provider's logo and name, 58% of customers said they would be more than willing to share personal information with that financial services provider. This number jumped to 68% among those in the 18 to 34 age bracket.
Clearly, having greater access to a customer's personal information helps banks better serve that customer and improve engagement.
And another benefit of branded calling is that it can increase call agent productivity, which can help banks reduce employee turnover. This is really an important factor given today's war on talent. Can you further explain?
Sure, it's no secret that attracting and retaining talent is a concern for many businesses today, and banks are no exception. Underscoring this point, the 2023 Crow Bank Compensation and Benefits Survey of 388 financial services organizations found that the top human resource management issues they face include finding and hiring the right people, which is a concern for 98% of banks, retaining the right people, which is a concern for 96% of banks, and motivating employees for better performance, which is a concern for 93% of banks. When call agents are able to connect with customers and drive more meaningful relationships, they may find their roles to be more fulfilling. Rather than being met with unanswered call after unanswered call, they'll be able to engage with customers and provide the valuable assistance that customers desire. This can lead to greater job satisfaction, improved employee engagement, and ultimately better staff retention for today's banks as they look to compete in the war on talent.
So, among TNS's suite of products is the TNS Enterprise Branded Calling solution. What is TNS Enterprise Branding Calling, and how can it help banks improve answer rates and enhance their brand reputation?
Yeah, Shelley talked about this a little bit earlier. Our offerings do include TNS Enterprise Branded Calling solution. This solution allows banks to provide brand information on outgoing calls, such as name, logo, and eventually the reason for the call, which provides consumers the information and confidence they need to answer the phone and engage with the agent. Rich content is only delivered when we know the enterprise is making the call using TNS Enterprise Authentication. This award-winning solution is integrated into major wireless networks. In fact, it's available on over 300 million devices across Verizon Wireless, AT&T Wireless, and T-Mobile networks.
Yes, Jim. And by leveraging TNS Enterprise Branded Calling, banks can get more calls answered and avoid lost opportunities. More specifically, banks can help increase their contact rates by displaying their brand name, reach their wireless customers and create trusted engagement, reduce acquisition costs with more qualified engagements, and finally protect their brand and consumers by registering and vetting their calling numbers. Again, I think it's important to call out that our TNS Enterprise Branded Calling pilot resulted in a 133% increase in customer answer rate.
So, what sets TNS apart from the competition? Why are a growing number of banks turning to TNS compared with other solution providers that are in the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. TNS was established more than 30 years ago and is a market leader in call analytics and robocall mitigation. We support thousands of organizations across more than 60 countries. With this 30 years of call identification experience, TNS handles more than 1 billion daily call events from over 500 operators and has facilitated more than 1 billion branded calls. And because we see far more traffic than virtually any telecom in America, our analytics generate the most accurate and comprehensive industry data sets available. Our strong heritage, coupled with our suite of innovative offerings, makes TNS the ideal solution for banks looking to better protect their brand and remain competitive in today's challenging market.
For banks looking to get started in deploying spoof protection and branded calling with TNS, how do they get started? What's the implementation process?
Happy to take this one. As with any business process, a good place to start is to establish your specific organization's goals and visions. Consider the following. What are you looking to achieve? What is the scope of the solution? Will it be used for fraud protection, improved customer support? What are the organization's current pain points? What are the areas in need of improvement? It's important just to have a clear understanding of what your goals and visions are. Next, look for a reliable solutions provider like TNS, who not only has extensive experience in branded calling, but experience working with financial service firms, so we understand the unique needs and challenges facing the sector. TNS's wealth of experience and subscriber data can be game-changing for today's banks. TNS specialists are always ready and available to help guide banks through the implementation process and ensure they are on the path to success. It is also important to monitor the solution's performance. TNS makes this easy through its robust reporting capabilities, like real-time dashboard reports. With TNS, banks can gain greater business insight into the number of calls delivered, answered, declined by a user, missed, and then called back to quantify the value that enriched data brings to the calling experience.
Great, thank you. Well, that's all the time we have today. And Jim and Shelley, I want to thank you for joining us and discussing how spoof protection and branded calling can help banks drive customer engagement and generate new business opportunities.
Thanks, Antoinette.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you to our listeners. To learn more, please visit tnsi.com.